Hello everyone, I am the Minute Kirby. Welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews and other deck techs. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a commander from the newly previewed Tomb Raider Secret Lair, Lara Croft Tomb Raider. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel and no extra cost to you. But the very best way you can help support the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck techs, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You could also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with a logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Lara Croft is a 3/4 human ranger with first strike and reach for 1 green, 1 blue, and 1 red. Whenever she attacks, you can exile up to 1 legendary artifact or legendary land from a graveyard with a discovery counter on it. You can then play a card from exile with a discovery counter on it this turn. This ability has some subtle things to keep in mind. First off, this can be from any player's graveyard, so if you're milling opponents, you can steal things like Mox Amber, Mox Opal, the One Ring, etc. when attacking with Lara. Another thing to note is that you don't have to play what you just exiled. It only has to be exiled with a discovery counter and on the turn you attack with Lara. So if you had exiled something you could not play that turn, you can still play it in a future turn that you attack with her. Her second triggered ability is a raid effect that creates a treasure token at the end of combat, which is a nice mana acceleration effect. Since Lara isn't a commander with an obvious path of how to build around, I decided to play with all of her abilities. For example, she has first strike and wants to attack each turn if possible. But how about making it harder for opponents to block her? This is achieved with Death Touch thanks to both Nylea, Sarath the Viper's Fang, Oran Frostfang, Basilisk Collar, and Nazgul Battle Mace. The first 3 give Death Touch when our creatures attack, which is great when swinging in with the first strike commander. If anything blocks her, they'll die before dealing damage unless the blocker also had first strike or double strike. The equipment are straightforward, with the Collar giving Lifelink as a bonus and the Battle Mace giving Menace as a bonus. If an opponent needed to block Lara, they'd lose 2 blockers. It also gives Annihilator 1, which isn't super backbreaking, but we steal anything opponents sacrifice, which is super on flavor with our commander. Now, these are detriments if they choose to block our commander, so it'll always be win-win for us. But how about forcing opponents to block anyways? Nemesis Mask, Lure, and Tempting Lycet provide lure effects, forcing all of our opponent's creatures that can block Lara to block her. If she had Death Touch and First Strike, we can very easily clear off a ton of our opponent's untapped creatures. Granted, the higher Lara's power, the more creatures we can kill. But this is some nice spicy tech for those first strike Death Touch creatures. Nath of the Dire Hunt also provides a lure type effect, but opponents aren't forced to block with all of their creatures. As long as Lara is blocked, even if it's with 1 creature, it counts. That being said, she doubles Lara's power and we draw a card whenever a creature we control gets blocked. So she's amazing here with these strategies. Mithril Coat and Hammer of the Zon make it so she survives combat damage or other destruction effects if we really wanted to hammer this home, pun intended. In any case, giving indestructible to a commander is critical. While the coat has built-in indestructibility, if the hammer were destroyed somehow, since it's legendary, we can get it back with Lara's Discover counter ability somewhere soon. Swiftfoot Boots and Champion's Helm also protect Lara, but not from combat damage nor mass destruction effect. That being said, they're still necessary for Voltron decks like this one. And since we care about doing things ourselves to Lara, we don't want to give her Shroud, so things like Lightning Greaves are excluded from this deck. Another reason opponents might want to block Lara is if she's equipped with Saboteur effects like Komayinu Battle Armor, Quietus Spike, Robe of the Archmagi, Scepter of Celebration, and the Reaver Cleaver. This makes the decision even more difficult. Block and lose a key creature or give my opponent value. In this case, the Battle Armor goads all of the defending player's creatures, the Spike halves their lives and is yet another source of Death Touch, the Robe draws us cards equal to combat damage dealt, the Scepter creates 1/1 citizens equal to combat damage dealt, and the Cleaver creates treasure equal to combat damage dealt, which also fits in with the treasure creating ability on Lara. Speaking of Lara's raid effect, the deck also has cards to make the most of her treasure creating ability. Such cards include Academy Manufactor, Soren, and Goldspan Dragon. Academy Manufactor is one of my favorite Magic cards in a very long time, and I hope we get a similar effect for Blood, Map, and Power Stone tokens. Getting clues and food when creating treasure is incredibly useful. Zorn gives us an additional treasure token if we would create one, and the Dragon gives us an additional mana when cracking treasures. Speaking of doubling up on these effects, Adrix and Neve Twin Casters, Parallel Lives, Doubling Season, and Primal Vigor are also included in the deck. These might seem like overkill if we're just banking on Lara's raid ability, However, with some of the other cards in the deck that also create tokens, these are actually more useful than that, especially if Lara is equipped with any of the previously mentioned Scepter of Celebration or the Reaver Cleaver. These cards are also amazing with the Millennium Calendar, which is also in the deck. This might seem like it's a bit out of left field, but it's a legendary artifact that only costs 1 mana to cast, so we can always get it back with Lara's attack trigger ability. That being said, it's not that hard to win with this thing, believe it or not, especially if we're quadrupling its counters thanks to Doubling Season. As for how we're going to make the use of her wordy ability, the one where we exile legendary artifacts and legendary lands from our graveyard, I decided to only include those artifacts and lands that have either built-in sacrifice or discard costs. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, Lara doesn't have a clear path of how to build around, so you can make a deck with mostly legendary permanents, a deck with a lot of self-mill, a deck with a lot of non-legendary cloned copy effects, or ways to copy her trigger, etc. However, I decided to include the best legendary artifacts that already work well on their own, as we've seen strewn across the video so far, as well as ones that we can recycle. For example, Doseiju Who Endures, Orawara Soaring City, and Sokenzan Crucible of Worlds are all legendary lands with a built-in discard effect thanks to Channel, meaning that we can channel these lands for their effect, exile them with a discovery counter with Lara, and then play them as lands from exile afterwards. That way we don't really lose them. Since they enter untapped and can tap for mana, these lands are some of the best for a Lara deck. Definitely consider them regardless of which way you build Lara Croft. Inventor's Fair is a legendary land that has to be sacrificed for its tutor effect. That being said, just like the channel lands, we can repay this from exile if we put a discovery counter on it with Lara. Hope of Girapur and Ariet's Tempting Apple are self-sacrificing legendary artifacts with disruptive effects. Hope of Girapur provides a pseudo-silence effect that we could potentially do every turn to lock that combo player or control player out of the game until we kill them off. The apple lets us steal a creature each turn if we're able to as well. The Filigree Silex and the Moment provide more disruption in the form of board wipes. The moment we play it, the Silex can wipe all tokens, which is great against token decks that can overrun us. But it can also wipe the board depending on the number of oil counters it has on it. Good thing we're running Doubling Season in the deck. The Moment does something similar, but it also has a protective effect on it via phasing out a creature. Before we choose to wipe the board, we can first phase out Lara. Hilda's Crown of Winter can be used to tap down a problematic blocker before attacking with Lara, so we can use it every turn. However, if we sacrifice it to draw a ton of cards, we can eventually play it back if we exile it with a discovery counter. RMS Titanic is another way to create a large number of treasures, which follows with the deck's subgroup of treasure production cards. This legendary vehicle sacrifices itself after it creates the treasures, so we can get it back with Lara Croft in the future. As a bonus, Lara can even crew it by default if we wanted to, if only it had haste. The deck is also running other legendary artifacts that are useful on their own, but can be recovered if ever lost to the graveyard. Brass's Tunnel Grinder provides a form of card advantage when it transforms, but in order to do that, it has to have 3 board counters on it. This shouldn't be an issue since the deck is sacrificing legendary artifacts, discarding legendary lands, and sacrificing any of the deck's 9 fetch lands, etc. We just need to make sure to do those things during our turn before ending it. Oh, it even helps with this itself since it's a wheel type effect when it enters the battlefield. In any case, when it transforms into Teclutan, it's a land that will discover X. Hence the card advantage of either putting that card into your hand or free casting it. This is such an amazing new ability, I love it. The One Ring is another obvious include here, not only because it's a legendary artifact, but because of all it does. It gives us protection from everything when we cast it and provides insane card advantage. Just be careful with how this works with Doubling Season. Although, you'll be drawing way more cards thanks to it. While it has Indestructible, it could go to our graveyard due to mass sacrifice effects, getting it discarded, milled, etc. Mox Amber and Mox Opal might seem unnecessary in a green deck that can run land-based ramp effects, and they can be a bit pricey. However, if you already have them, consider them since they're free to cast, and if destroyed, we can recover them essentially for free since they cost 0 to cast from exile. In any case, Sword of the Animus and Bitterthorn Nissa's Animus are also legendary artifacts and provide land-based mana acceleration, which is superior anyways. Best of all, they're combat-based, which is what we want to be doing with Lara anyways. Obviously, the deck is still running things like Soul Ring and Sword of Hearth and Home for mana acceleration. Just because there's no synergy to be had doesn't mean we're not running them. Same with land-based ramp effects like Farseek, Nature's Lore, 3 Visits into the North, and Rampant Growth. Again, while this commander is practically a blank canvas for how to build around, don't forget to also make the most of the best aspects of its color identity as well. The same can be said with other aspects of deck building like interaction and card advantage. The deck is running Fierce Guardianship, an offer you can't refuse, Swan Song, Counterspell, Mana Drain, and Negate to not only protect our board and commander, but to prevent combo players to win the game. We're nowhere near the fastest deck at the table, so we gotta stop those insta-win situations. Heroic Intervention is also included to protect our board state, so this instant is also a given. Same with our own interactions such as Beast Within and Chaos Warp. These are so critical because they also hit lands. Last thing we need is to get stuck behind an opponent's Maze of Ith or similar land. As for global board wipes, you can't go wrong with Evacuation, Blasphemous Act, and Cyclonic Rift. Horde and token strategies are the bane of Voltron decks' instances, so making sure we can keep the board clear of such a thing is a good. We can't just rely on our opponents, but let's be real, how many board wipes on average are you seeing in Commander games nowadays? As for card advantage, the decks running Even the Score, Pull from Tomorrow, Stroke of Genius, and Drawn in Dreams. With all the treasure production, syncing them into any of these Draw X instants is amazing, especially in response to someone casting Dockside Extortionist, overloading a Blando Blast, etc. Best of all, the first one has the potential of costing triple blue less. But the best of these is actually Drawn in Dreams, since we can also mull an opponent for twice X. Again, keep in mind that we can exile legendary artifacts and legendary lands from any graveyard, so much so that Maddening Cacophony is also in the deck. While it's a singular massive mill effect, being able to mill half of each opponent's library for just 6 total mana is too good to pass up. And then we have a ton of cards to look through for any potential things to see with Lara. As for all the cards we're drawing, Reliquary Tower, Thought Vessel, and Decanter of Endless Water are included to have a limitless hand size. It's 2 more mana rocks for a green deck, but at least they do something besides tapping for mana. In any case, the deck is running plenty of ways to generate tons of mana. Apart from those already shown, the rest of the deck is just the rest of the lands. It's running all 3 Shock lands, all 3 Snow Duels, all 3 Slow Duels, Ketria Triome, Command Tower, and Ancient Tomb, as well as 3 of each basic snow-covered land for the basic land wrap effects and Into the North. As with all my deck techs, you can build your mana base according to your budget. Whether you include more expensive cards or even cheaper cards is up to you. You do you. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Lara Croft Tomb Raider. I love these types of commanders where it's not necessarily clear what the best path to build them is. So regardless of how you choose to build it, I hope you got some ideas here. And hopefully we don't have to wait too long for the Universes Within version of her to come out like they've done so far with the previous Secret Layers. If you're interested in the deck list of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of The Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am Demented Kirby, and happy brewing.